Economy, Tourism and Events Committee open. Councillor Castro can't be here today, so I'll be chairing in his absence. And I'll just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting here today, the Kumba people of the broader Yugambeh language group, and pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. If anyone wants to know why we do that, read the Uluru Statement online. It's available for anyone to read. I'll kick off with an apology. We do have a written apology from Councillor Castro. Would anyone like to move an apology? Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Seconded, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Also welcome visitors, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Caldwell and Councillor Peter Young to the committee today. Welcome. The first item of business is the confirmation of the minutes. Can I get a mover for those? Thank you, Councillor Gates. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Awesome. So the first report we have is the Gold Coast City Honours Awards. And I am informed that there are some changes. Alison, would you like to, is there a presentation you'd like to? Steve, yeah, you want to? Thanks, Steve.
Thanks very much, Mr Chairman. Happy to talk through the purpose behind this report. Council asked us to come back and present on a framework around how to ensure that Gold Coasters are represented at the very highest level possible when it comes to the top tier City of Gold Coast Awards program. The research that we did indicated that the National Australia Day Council's Australian of the Year Awards were the best way that we could achieve that. So what we've done is we've structured an awards program that would allow Gold Coasters who are determined across 4 categories here on the Gold Coast to then be eligible and be propelled forward to be recognised on the state and the national level. The timelines of this obviously have changed when we look at what we've done in the past, and we've awarded these around Australia Day. What we're suggesting now is that we launch the program in January, and in order to align with the National Australia Day Council's Australian of the Year Awards, Council would make a decision on the 4 category winners in the middle of the year to then fall in line with the timeframes that are associated with the National Australia Day Awards. There are 4 categories that we're suggesting here. Everybody would get placed into the category of the Gold Coast Australian of the Year. And then from there, and once that was determined, there are categories around a young Gold Coast Australian of the Year, a senior Gold Coast Australian of the Year, and a 4th category. And these align to, again, the National Australia Day program. And we feel as though that's the best way in which we can propel Gold Coasters and their achievements on the local level to that state and national level.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Owen Jones and then Councillor Young have some questions.
Thanks, Chair. So through you, so that's in regards to the national awards for Australian of the Year. I think there was a conversation that we'd had with officers in the preparation of the report, which was also in regards to Order of Australia type of applications. And do you envisage that will also help be a conduit for those applications?
Through you, Mr Chairman, as a secondary benefit potentially, and we're still looking at the timeframes around those. The alignment to this program and alignment of dates certainly has the ability for those who are picked by council to be recipients of those 4 awards to transfer forward to a state and national level, which at some point in the future, as long as dates do align, that also would take into account that as a secondary benefit.
I actually think that that's also it should be a primary benefit as well, because ultimately, I think we see some of those. I think it's twice a year that those Australian honours are announced, and the Gold Coast, for its size, generally, I think could do better in regards to that nomination process. So I had imagined that conversation we'd had with officers would help lead us down that path, as well as to line it to the Australian of the Year program.
Can I follow up that comment with a question? When is that? Can we confirm when the OAMs and the AMs and the OAs are awarded each year? Do you know?
Mr Chairman, I have to take that question.
On notice?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Does anyone know, Councillor? No? I've got Councillor Young and then Councillor Patterson. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just regarding the selection criteria, I was wondering about the comments in terms of weight may be given to your gender, age and ethnicity in terms of determining whether you get the award or not. And it seems a rather strange criteria for determining a Gold Coast of the Year or Australian of the Year award. So just wanted to see your comment on that.
Through you, Mr Chairman. Councillor, those 4 additional criteria are basically in line with what occurs at the national level. So that essentially is a cut-paste of how one is determined for those state and national awards. So we felt it was appropriate, if we are attempting to align in order to propel Gold Coasters forward to be eligible for these, that we run a system where that similar criteria is used.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Chairman. Whenever you're ready to take a motion, I do have a motion that provides a renaming of the awards, given the alignment to the Australian of the Year awards, the national awards. And it has been suggested by Mr Brooks' team that we change the name to the Gold Coast City Honours Awards, from the Gold Coast City Honours Awards to the Gold Coast Australian of the Year Awards.
Okay.
Given their close alignment. And I don't have an issue with that. I think that makes perfect sense. I would like to say well done on making the alignment with the national honours, because it does, in my view, give far more weight and credibility to the honour that we're bestowing in matching the same awards. And if we do proceed and change the name to this and provide a pathway to our recipients for the national awards.
Yep.
So when you're ready, I'll just make a move. There was a suggestion put forward in forming this new recommendation that the granting of the keys to the city remain a decision for the full council at a full council meeting. So perhaps you might like to canvass that thought before I move a changed recommendation.
So before we take the motion from the floor, I've just been informed, I just need to double check that no one has a conflict of interest they need to declare. It's great. Is that, you happy with it? So we can just record that in the minutes that no one declared conflict. That's great. Councillor Gates, why don't you put your motion to us?
Okay, so my motion is that council renames the Gold Coast City Honours Awards to the Gold Coast Australian of the Year Awards. I don't know why the 2's in there. But how about amends? That council amends the Gold Coast City Honours Awards to the Gold Coast Australian of the Year Awards. Take out 2, please. And 3 is fine, which becomes 2. And subject to the view of the committee, the suggestion I mentioned was that in regard to the key to the city, that remains, it's mentioned in the policy that that can be made quickly in times of need. Given that it's probably the highest honour our city can bestow, there was a thought put to me that perhaps we should never have a short time frame that can't be met by council. So I don't mind either way.
Did you want to word 3? Because
Well-
I think there might be support for that if you were to devise some
Well,
words.
someone can amend the motion, and I don't know what the committee feels about that.
All right. Councillor Patterson and Councillor Owen-Jones.
Thank you. I was wondering if Councillor Gates would consider adding to her recommendation that that we note that we will not consider gender, age or ethnicity when determining the awards. Just omit that section. I don't see any upside or value to having it. It's effectively saying we're putting gender, age or ethnicity above merit. That's what that says.
I think what is intended, with all respect, is that so that we consider the diversity of our country and its people, that we do consider those things to make sure that we are inclusive. I would imagine that's the intent of it.
So just
sorry, if I
through the chair, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
through the chair, I appreciate that intent. My take on it is that intent gets met when you don't put those factors in and people receive an award purely based on merit and not based on those factors. That's when you get a true reflection. And I think it's a shame that we see this kind of focus across wards at a federal level, and I think we have an opportunity to stand up and say, you know what, we are a diverse city. We don't need to say we will give a tick to someone based on gender, age or ethnicity, because the people who are leaders in our community are from a diverse population. So for me, it really diminishes the value of the awards to say, okay, well, if we've got these people, but guess what? We're going to be looking at this gender, this age, or this ethnicity. We've already got specific age-based awards in there.
So I think Councillor Gates has probably declined the opportunity to have you second her motion with that amendment. So
Okay, I
we
just
just need to take a second. We don't have a motion yet.
I just wanted to point back to the point because I appreciate her point. And what I'm suggesting is that I think by not adding that, you actually get a more effective reflection.
Okay. So just if you want to make an amendment later, you'd be welcome to speak to it. I've got a motion that is not quite complete, Councillor Gates. So I suppose I'm going to put you on the spot and say, do you want to just move 1 and 2 and leave 3 out for now?
Sure.
And may I have a seconder on 1 and 2? I'm happy to second it if no one else wants to second it. I do actually think the keys to the city
Well, that's what we're
commentary that
going to
Councillor
explore
Gates has
amongst everyone. I'm happy to add it if everyone feels that
noted
way.
makes sense, but I'll need an amendment to 1 and 2. Councillor Owen-Jones.
Sorry, I thought I was going to get a chance before you rushed to do the moving and the seconding, because I actually think that the keys to the city is something that can easily be accommodated within the monthly meeting cycles of council, and I think it's actually important that we give it consideration and it not be a rolling decision. So I think there's actually a benefit of having it carefully decided. So we've only given the keys to the city out 30 times in the period of time that the city has been in existence as the arbitrator in the city of Gold Coast. And so I actually think that it's important that we take it slowly.
Did you want to move an amendment such that the keys to the city
So,
is addressed, or?
so as a non-member, I wouldn't be able to do that.
And I'll take that on board if that's the view of the committee, and we can include these words that previously existed within the policy anyway.
Wonderful. Just 1 second, we'll just get the words right and then I'll back to you, Councillor Caldwell.
Sorry, I should have had those words ready. No, it's this.
Councillor Gates, does that look? I'm happy to adjust our moving and seconding of the motion
Okay,
to adjust
sure.
that. Is there any dissent for us changing the original motion right now? Okay, great. Councillor Corbell, you had some questions.
Oh, it was just. One question, which was, I don't disagree with the paragraph 1, but are we at liberty to use the words Australian of the Year in our own program?
It's a good question. Steve.
Through you, Mr Chairman, so the conversations that we've had with the National Australia Day Council is that they would, excuse me, like to see alignment at a local level to the state and national awards.
So that's good, but can we use I don't know.
So the National
So they
Australia
want
Day
us to
Council.
feed into that process, and that's what we're doing, and I agree with that. Is it okay for us to call it the Gold Coast Australian of the Year Awards?
Through you, Mr Chairman, there's nothing that the Australia Day Awards Council have indicated to us
That would
the
preclude
use
that.
of this would preclude that
Okay,
from happening.
thank you.
Wonderful. Is there any other questions? If there's no further questions, I might take Councillor Gates initially. I'll be with you in a second, Councillor Patterson. You've moved it and I've seconded it. I'll let you open debate if you'd like to just introduce debate.
I think the director's just going to provide for the for one addition to number 3 here. That will require the consideration of council for the honorary resident or whatever it is, the honorary. Yeah. I wouldn't like to call it that anyway.
Well,
there
you don't rate that phrase, do you?
I don't rate that at all.
Peter Mellier might be an honorary Gold Coaster.
He might be, yeah.
Do we still want that?
It's a good question, Councillor Gates. Again, we have a motion and we can argue it.
Got a novelty value.
You can vote against your own motion, but I'm not sure this.
Okay. I'll open debate by saying again that this is a good report and a good item for us to consider given the feedback that was provided when we first looked at a review of our awards for the city. And I do believe that in renaming them the Gold Coast Australian of the Year Awards, it recognises the value we place upon these awards. These are the highest honours that we present in the city, and we have so many fantastic people within the city that can be recognised through this new program, and it provides a better pathway to the national awards, the National Australian of the Year Awards. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Councillor Patterson, you had either a query or Yeah, of course. Move your amendment. What are the wording of your amendment?
That the selection criteria is amended to remove consideration given to gender, age and ethnicity.
So would that be the same 1, 2 and 3 but with a 4, an amended motion? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, thank you.
So Councillor Patterson has moved an amendment that incorporates 1 to 3 and adding the 4, which I'll get her to dictate to you again if you're okay with that.
The selection criteria is amended to remove consideration given to gender, age and ethnicity. I don't think I need to add where specifically age is noted. So we've got the senior, we've got the junior. I realise we don't have the Gen X award, so going to miss out there, but that's okay.
So this is technically an amendment to Councillor Gates' original motion as opposed to a changed motion. Yeah. And that amendment has been moved by Councillor Patterson. Can I ask for a seconder for that amended motion? Okay. Councillor McDonald has seconded that amendment. And according to the meeting rules, Councillor Gates gets to speak first on the amendment.
No, I get to close.
You can close.
I get to close.
All right. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. It's really important that we acknowledge important people who've provided to our city, and that is completely irrelevant of gender, of age and of ethnicity. The city is proud of the fact that it doesn't take those considerations into effect and that we have a lot of people from very diverse backgrounds. I think that we are big enough and strong enough and grown up enough to be able to choose people and select people based on that real criteria. And if we look at the gender element, I assume that that would be suggesting more representation of females versus males. And for me, I just know how many extraordinary women, probably about 50% at least, who would be suitable for this award. So I think it actually devalues that award for someone who's given it if it's defined that there may have been an element of choice based on gender, age or ethnicity. By taking those words out, everyone who receives this award knows that they received it on merit. I think we should take that out. Thank you.
Okay, we're just tidying up the movers and amenders of each of these. And we're getting through that slowly. So I'm just going to take speakers against from the floor first. Do you want to speak against the amendment? In the absence of that, I would say that I think, when I consider city honours or awards, it is not only identified in the categories that I would consider age, but in the uniqueness of each candidate. I would probably consider their ethnicity on occasions and their diverse background in life. And so I can't in good faith support the amendment. I think it's actually incumbent upon all of us to think about the uniqueness of each individual, and that includes their age, their ethnicity and their diversity. And so I whilst I commend the idea that we wouldn't discriminate on those grounds, it's entirely those grounds that I think sometimes allows us or enables us or encourages us to recognise someone's contribution to the city. So I can't support the amendment. We are still doing a little bit of paperwork here. It's all right? Of course.
Mr. Chair, if this is going on to the state and, for these awards, now they've got ages in there, and for the young Australian, that's 16 to 30, so that would be bound by that, wouldn't it, if it's going further? So,
correct.
So what I'm talking, so we'd have to abide within that time frame anyway, that year frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those parts would stay the same. It's just this was additional wording.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying, if we chose somebody 12.
Right.
How are you guys going over there? Under control? All right, so we have an amendment. Councillor Patterson has spoken for it. It's been seconded by Councillor McDonald. I've spoken against it. Is there any other speakers for or against? And if not, I will go to Councillor Gates to close.
Thanks. I won't be supporting the amendment because I think the inclusion of the criteria has been made in good faith to align with the national awards. It also suggests the inclusion of consideration to field of endeavour as well as gender, age, ethnicity. And I think there are times when weight needs to be given for an award sometimes we have people in our community who don't have a great command of English initially. They may improve and make some outstanding contribution to our city. And on that basis, my belief is ethnicity should be considered. I think the entire intent of the inclusion of those things is to focus on the diversity of our city, not to discriminate in any way at all. I would be very, very disappointed if anyone in this city discriminated against anyone on the basis of gender, age, ethnicity or field of endeavour. But they are, for me, things that we should consider. And if perhaps there's a case where we have someone who's neck and neck and we've got a 100-year-old who's up for an award or something similar, then those factors do and should, in my mind, be borne in mind by us all. So I have no problem with those things being included in our policy because they're not there to discriminate, they're simply there to align, in my view, with the national awards. And I feel that there will have been people involved in the preparation of these considerations who've put a lot more into it than perhaps any one of us individually. So I'm quite happy to go along and align our awards with the national body.
Thank you, Councillor Gates. For closing debate, I'll take the vote. All those in favour of the amendment, all those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. Councillor Patterson, those against? The amendment is lost. We'll return to the original motion. Councillor Gates, again, it's your motion. Would you like to?
No, so moved.
Great. I've seconded the motion. Is there any other debate? No? I'll take the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously today.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is item 7.1. Thank you, Steve. And thanks for all your work on that one. Item 7.1, which is screen infrastructure. It's in We're now back in open session and have had a relevant debate about those confidential matters pertaining to this matter. Councillor Young has devised a motion and moved it. It's been seconded by Councillor Patterson, and I'll let Councillor Young speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. And in closed session, we considered a proposal put towards the city to support or to look at supporting additional screen infrastructure within the city. And we are at a particular time within the city where the amount of interest in the city for production of screen either television or movies, and the actual incorporation of the talent that we have within this city, and also with this this application before us today, with the interest of passing on further education towards not only the current screen talents required, but also to ensure that the city continues to grow going forward. And I think the biggest thing in our current economy, as well as with the rapid growth within the city and the number of people wanting to be here, the fact that we've got over 100 schools in our city and we've got students who are rapidly becoming involved in the film and television industry and the production industry, that the city would very wisely look at considering the proposal before us, knowing that in southeast Queensland especially, that the support for the industry is growing and growing, and that the city doesn't want to be on the back foot when it comes to this. And if we are looking at production as well as jobs growth, as well as establishing ourselves not only here in southeast Queensland but nationally and internationally, that supporting this proposal before us today is a good thing.
I'm going to add to that, just to say that in closed session we talked about three things particularly. One was that the city, and particularly this committee, is very, very encouraged by the strength of the film industry in our city. It's been really exciting to see the productions and the calibre of productions produced here. And whilst we can't go into all the details or the particulars of the proposal that was put to us, it's very exciting times for that industry. So if members of the community are employed in that sector, it's a great time to be in that sector. The second thing we talked about in closed session was unequivocally the council really tries to avoid deviating from our infrastructure charges policy. We don't like to give discounts. It's not appropriate. The infrastructure charges that a development application might be liable to pay contributes to the broader trunk infrastructure of the city, and it's critically important that we make sure that we rely on those development applications and those infrastructure charges to help build our city in the future. And I want to, I suppose, echo Councillor Caldwell as the Chair of Planning. He was quite adamant about, not providing any discounts there, and so thank him for his contribution and his joining us today in this committee and talking about that. The third thing is that we invite proposals that invest in the future infrastructure of our city, whether it's the aviation industry or the film industry or the health industry or whatever it is. We have generous incentives for businesses who are willing to base their operations right here, and that the screen industry is no exception to that. Did anyone want to speak against the motion today? No? Everyone likes the screen industry?
Who doesn't like movies?
Who doesn't like movies? It's true, it's true. I will take the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? That motion is carried. We have one general business item, which is also about the film industry, and it was raised by Councillor Patterson, and if it can be brought up on the screen, I'll ask Councillor Patterson to move it.
Thank you. And Gabrielle may want to stay reasonably close. I think we can do this in open, but it may be that conversation about our last grant offering may come up, so we'll leave it in open for the moment. So this comes about after our meeting our last committee meeting.
Just before you open debate, do I have a seconder for the motion?
I might need to talk about it a bit more first.
I'm happy to second the motion, and you can open debate.
Okay, great, thank you. In our last committee meeting, what came to us was a request to approve a grant application for the screens. But that grant application was in effect almost already offered. It had gone through the process. The film company was effectively assured that they were going to receive this grant. And I made a mention that it just seemed to be, it made this process a rubber stamp process. And I thought, we either need that the decision doesn't get made before it comes in this room, or otherwise, let's not vote on it. And when I looked at the material, I thought there is very stringent requirements in terms of the guidelines. So my proposal is, seeing as we have those stringent requirements, rather than making a pretense fake vote rubber stamp of something where we aren't actually influencing it, let's just delegate that authority and say you can do it. If that's not the option, then I think we need to revisit how it's currently done, because for those decisions to be made and then for it to come to us and it not actually be a real decision for us, doesn't make sense. So the recommendation is that the council delegate to the CEO the power to approve the incentives in accordance with the expenditure thresholds, the funding amounts and minimum return on investment contained within the Screen Attraction Program. So it's just increasing the delegated authority from their minimum amount that we allow them to do already without it coming to council.
Do I have any speakers against or any questions? Councillor Young and then Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Chairman. So how would this be distinguished from the decisions made around support for investors in the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct, for example, whereby I think those decisions are required to come back to council?
So
do you want me to go,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chair? Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Young. So currently the delegation is $100,000. So when it's over that, that's when you will see them come through council. What this delegation seeks to do is purely base this on the Screen Attraction Program, and only when it is compliant with every criteria in it that we have. If there was a point where it didn't comply, it would still come to council. And at our last committee as well, we also committed that we would regularly bring, whether it's quarterly, an acquittal and a report on what had been approved through that process too. So that would still remain as it is: business attraction, sport attraction, and any of the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct.
So theoretically, if I may, Chairman, we could change the policy as it applies to the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct and give the CEO delegation to approve any amount as far as if it accords with policy. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, council could do that if they wanted to.
So thank you.
I think it's just proposed at the moment that this delegation only apply to the Screen Attraction Program, not the Health and Knowledge Precinct Program. And Councillor Patterson?
I do think that the guidelines for the screen attraction are really prescriptive in a way. My take on it is there is kind of a more subjective kind of decision making with the Health and Knowledge Precinct, which isn't there. If they either hit these requirements for the screen or they don't, which is why I wouldn't support this for the Health and Knowledge Precinct, but I would support it for this grant.
Okay. Councillor Corbett, you had a question?
Well, my only contribution, not a question, was that we took a similar step to this in relation to one of the other business attraction programs a few years ago, which was either the Yatala Enterprise area or a broad business attraction thing. And I tend to agree with Councillor Patterson that if the metrics are very straightforward and we're dealing with, a relatively small amount of money and it's uncontroversial and it helps these guys just get on with doing the business of bringing the movies in or whatever, then I think with some of these programs there is a point where we can make that shift to a delegated process. And if it's getting reported regularly and we understand that we're running within the budget parameters of what we've allocated to the program, then I think it's probably a good thing.
Excellent. Can I ask the Director a question? To what extent is the use of that delegation reported to councillors when it's used?
Through you, Mr. Chair, at the moment we do twice a year reporting. We have done it more regularly for the investment attraction lately, probably because we've been coming to you asking for more funds. But normally it would be 6 monthly, but I think it was either 1 or 2 committees ago we did commit to quarterly reporting. And we can do it more regularly as well, if council wished.
I think there's definitely an interest in the exercising of this program.
Would you
So
like?
it might be even a confidential item on the agenda.
Can do
If
that.
it's, just
Would you like to add a number 3 there then as well, just to say that officers present
A-
regular
confidential,
reporting, confidential reporting to
to the tier committee.
yeah.
Yeah. So the wording is that the officers present a confidential report for noting at each ETE committee.
So anything that's been done in that previous time, and councillors, if you're happy, if we haven't endorsed anything through the delegation, we just wouldn't put a report up.
I'm sorry? Oh, each meeting is what we agreed to, yeah, just, so confidential report on the use of the delegation. Yeah, and there might be some meetings where there isn't
Yeah.
the use of the delegation, so it's no
Exactly,
use
yeah.
to provide a report if there's nothing, but
Yeah.
if it has been used, then
Yep,
let's put it
that's
in there
fine.
and then everyone can be kept informed. Councillor Young?
Just, sorry, and through the chair, thank you for that. Just a question on that. So the whole procedure we've just been through there and closed as to what was suggested to us, as to what we actually put forward. Where's the opportunity for that to happen if it just comes to us as a delegated?
So through you, Mr Chair, Councillor Young, that would be completely separate. So because that proposal that came through today was not as part of the screen attraction, it wasn't a film or anything like that. So that was purely something separate
Yeah,
without
something
going into
separate,
too
yeah,
much detail. So this would purely only be for film attractions where it complies with the guidelines.
Thank you. That's just all I need to
Yep.
clarified. Thank
Councillor
you.
Taylor?
Yeah, and I suppose for myself is obviously we've got allocations for the year. How would we manage where that is at, the level of expenditure moving forward? And my only concern would be the delegation. I'm totally supportive of what we're saying, streamline it, that to be able to manage the ability to ensure that we're not overspending or we keep enough in the...
Through you, Mr Chair, Councillor Taylor, Gabby could confirm here that I ask our team each week. I'm very, very clear, and anything that I sign with a delegated authority is required to have an acquittal of our budget each time. Also, we would ensure that with that report that comes to committee each time, we would have where the budget was at that point in time, taken into account too that budget does also service a business attraction program and the sport attraction as well.
So that report would need to have that
Yeah,
content,
we
which
would
is
do that.
fine. Yeah. Councillor Patterson, we've adjusted the motion by adding that 3. Do you object to that? Is that okay? If there's no further debate, Councillor Patterson, would you like to close?
Yes, thank you. Our ratepayers expect us to run our council as efficiently as we possibly can. We have very prescriptive requirements around the attraction program, and we've got great officers who do that work. It really doesn't make sense for us to do a pretense kind of vote in council, which effectively becomes a time waster when we've already made those parameters. We're very grateful for the extraordinary work that our officers are doing in this area, making the Gold Coast a place to be for businesses in screen around the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. We made a slight adjustment that didn't give any significant effect other than to just reference item 2 for the delegation. So we added those words. You're okay with that? It's just referenced in item 2 with the words that were added to the motion. Good. No further debate. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. Is there any other general business? Meeting closed at 2:35.